so dope as per usual. And TJ, as always, always with the clothes I want to steal. Very, very tight. All right, so guys, we're gonna go ahead and kickstart the evolution of streetwear panel. I'm really excited to introduce these two panelists. They are incredible, but I feel like they're also like two, different sides of the spectrum when it comes to fashion. In terms of like just generation, like in terms of generations, I feel like, Jure, you just have like this dope aesthetic, this dope vibe. And again, like you're part of part of the millennial generation, so you bring that new kind of young energy. I think is really out there right now. And then TJ, you have such history. Also, you're one of the pioneers of streetwear, so I won't even not credit you for what you and Carl did for the streetwear industry. So I'll let you guys introduce yourselves, and then we can go ahead and dive into questions. So ladies first, Dre, go ahead and get started. Just a quick intro.
Hi, I'm Dre Holloway. I'm originally from Long Beach, California, but I currently live in New York. I consider myself a creative powerhouse. I wear many hats. I creative direct, I style, I model, and do graphic design. So the sky's the limit, and I'm so honored to be here today to speak on behalf of the evolution of streetwear, because we've seen it just form into something so beautiful. And it's more than clothing. At the end of the day, it's history, it's now. So I'm very thankful to be here.
Absolutely. And TJ, please.
Hello, everyone. My name is TJ Walker. I'm one of the co-founders of Cross Colors, the brand. And I'm very happy to be here, honored to be here. And thanks, Kadeem, for inviting me. And definitely happy to communicate with Jure today. It's always great to see that smile. So a little bit about me. I'm originally from Mississippi, moved out to Los Angeles a long time ago, over 30 years ago. And I live here now. I teach at the Fashion Institute, also at Trade Tech College in the fashion departments there. And I also, as I said before, am one of the co-founders of the Cross Colors brand. And we still work together, Carl Jones and myself, we still work on that brand basically every day to push it through. So that's a little bit about me.
Love it. All right, well, I want to let's jump in. So, we're all aware of the fact that the streetwear industry, has grown into a multi-billion dollar powerhouse over the last several years. So what do you think it is about streetwear that has led to such exponential growth and popularity?
TJ, I wanna piggyback off of you. So okay. I'm gonna let you have the floor first.
When you ask that question, the answer is that it's always been a market, and basically that's just saying we've always been a market as a culture and as a people. I think the thing is, when we actually started Cross Colors in the 90s, what was missing was just that representation of product in the stores, at least in terms of people identifying it as a market and identifying it as a product. And before it was streetwear, it was actually called ethnic or urban wear. So it has evolved as far as not just the actual product and what it is, but also the name that is associated with the product too as well. But basically just think of the product as your product, because that's what it is.
Love that. Dre?
To piggyback off of that a bit, I have some notes here. So if I look to the side of the screen, so I took my notes. I think the evolution and the growth and popularity of streetwear definitely has come from music, to politics, social justice, human rights, appreciation, and appropriation. I feel like it has become so popular because I feel like there's many, many reasons, but I love to celebrate the positive reasons as to why it's still relevant today and why it's still powerful today and why it's an art form, I feel like. And to me, streetwear, like I said, goes beyond clothing. It's a voice, it's a rebellion, it's a revolution, and it just happens to be something that we can wear, which I think is really awesome because so many people choose to express themselves through clothing and through style and through fashion. But for me, I feel like hip hop definitely was like the bridge as far as the visibility of streetwear, and we've seen music just kind of change that gradually over time from the late 80s up until what we see today. So we have to respect that. We have to respect where streetwear comes from, 100%.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And now there are those who feel that the streetwear industry is, increased significantly in popularity due to white consumers and their interest in mirroring Black culture. In your opinion, how accurate is that assumption?
I think we need to look back, and I just go back to the past because I think that's what we need to look a lot of times for our base and the relevancy of things today. We've always been, the direction. We've always been, the influence, for a lot of things, whether it's clothing, whether it's fashion, architecture, whatever design, aesthetics, or creative things that are necessary, or even just the basic needs that are out there. I mean, when you check back in terms of the inventors and things we've done in the past, we just need to just remember that, I think, to actually kind of base that on, or to answer that question for the most part. We've always been there as that. And I don't think in a lot of cases too, it does come down to the point that those things were buried in terms of what we've done. And those are buried in history. They're buried in, whatever was made present for or out there for everyone to get as far as information about what we've done and our achievements. I think now today with internet and, with the access to information, it just comes to the surface. I think it's always been done that way in a lot of cases, but now we have these things that are able to, and we can research now. We can, Google is, something. So, you can research now to actually get that information too as well. But I think we can talk about, people taking and doing these things to us, but we need to just remember what we've done and go from there. That's what I feel, with that, with that question.
I love that.
I agree 100%. And also just understanding the difference between appreciation and appropriation. And, I encourage, consumers the next time you are shopping, and also we need to be shopping Black. There's tons of Black businesses out here that are making amazing streetwear and quality, and it goes back into the community and it has a message. So that's what I have to say first on that. But for the people who are continuing to shop at, places like Zara, and, no shade to them, but next time you go buy your bootleg tee from a Zara or your oversized sweatsuit, let's understand and respect where these things originated, and where they come from and the history that it holds. And but it all comes down to just respecting, the culture for me, and why certain things are fitting, or why certain streetwear fits a certain way or looks a certain way, because it all comes back to there was a purpose and a reason why this item became trendy or why it was made. That's me and my appreciation for vintage and anthropology. I'm like, there's always a reason why something was made and created, and we need to understand that before we go out and just flaunt it just because it's cute. So that's what I have to say about that. It's, there's a fine line between appreciation and appropriation.
Yeah, and to
I
add,
love that.
Yeah,
oh, go
to
ahead.
add to just a little, because I think what Jory is saying is very, very important. And I think we really need to understand the fact that we need to understand. Because when you are shopping, when you are buying, when you're making a purchase, whether it's clothing, whether it's your products for your hair or whatever it is, you need to really look at the origin of those items. You need to look at the history or what the basis of those items are. And you also need to think about, what you're putting on your body, because it's really important. You need to understand what you're embracing and what you're actually taking in by putting those items on, and understand what they mean. And I think we need to think of buying quality pieces rather than quantity. It's not about how many pieces you have, but what are the meanings, and what are you representing when you wear that product? And you need to be that statement every time you walk out.
Oh, absolutely. So now I want to jump into careers for a bit. So, both of you guys are doing such incredible, visionary things in the fashion space. But of course, we weren't born into fashion. It was something that we had to work into, getting into that industry. So I'd love to know what steps you both took to get into the fashion industry. What did that journey look like to you? How did you navigate, going from someone who was learning to somebody who was then setting trends and, creating things? What did that look like for you? Anyone can start.
For me, I'm still learning. The learning does not stop, which makes everything so exciting, because I personally didn't graduate from college, so my career path looks very different. And I feel like it's hard to give like a set of rules or just a to-do, because I feel like everybody's path is specific to them. But for me, I started from the bottom and worked my way up. I started in retail 10 years ago, just always having a passion for fashion and a passion specifically for vintage clothing. And for me, because I'm a child of the 90s, brands like Cross Colors were just like, I didn't necessarily grow up in it, but I saw it and it was around me. And then being able to revisit that as an adult, super exciting for me. So yeah, just working in retail, and then seeing very quickly for me that like a lot of Black and brown people, we're just out here selling clothes. I did not see a lot of Black faces behind, the scenes. And then once I started styling and getting into modeling, it was the same thing. It was a lot of just like, where are the Black faces? I don't see us in these spaces. It's important. So that's been my mission from day one, is to help fill those spaces. Let's diversify the industry. After all, the foundation was built off of Black culture. So we need to be up in the mix a lot more. So that's hard. I am open to speaking with anybody, like as far as into detail, if they have any questions on that end, but it's so hard for me to answer this question just because I feel like we could be here all day, because there's a lot of things up in the mix.
Yeah. TJ, how about you? How did you get your foot in the door as a designer to get you to this point?
Well, actually, I went to, like I said before, I'm originally from Mississippi. I graduated with my master's degree from actually Louisiana Tech University. I moved out here to Los Angeles to get a job as an illustrator, because that's what I love to do. I love to illustrate and design. Now, coming out here, I realized quickly that I needed to actually get a job that I can make money quickly, otherwise I wouldn't be able to eat. So I got a job, and I was basically thrown into the fashion industry by way of my business partner, Carl Jones, because he had a screen printing company, and I was hired there as a graphic artist to work. And that was over 30 years ago. And that's basically how I got my foot into the door of fashion, and started to understand how to navigate and how to actually build product and to design, especially when it comes to the printing and print design work that goes on and embellishing garments. I really learned how to do that, and just had to stay in power. I think something really important that Jerry said is that you it doesn't matter what you do or where you go or where you plan to go. But if you have the thing that she mentioned, which is passion for that thing, that'll keep you when you don't have the money to actually go
Mm-hmm.
forward. You have to have the passion for whatever you want to do. And that's what's so
Yes.
important with the formula, in terms of how
Mm-hmm.
you're going to do it. Of course, you do need money to actually make it go, typically, in terms of the bottom line. But passion is something you must have, to me, to actually keep you going, because you have to keep going for success to happen a lot of times.
Mm-hmm.
So
Can I
now
say one more
we've
thing?
all witnessed. Oh, of course, please.
Yeah, just to piggyback off of that again, um, it's nothing that's like super technical when it comes to like advice or anything, but because life, be throwing you lots of things. So my life experience that I feel like I've taken throughout my journey is to always be true to yourself. It's very cliche, but that is the straight up facts. Like, I am so blessed and so thankful that I have, regardless of everything around me and regardless of what society and the fashion industry wanted to mold me into, I feel like I've always stayed true and authentic to myself. And don't be afraid to ask for help. Like, that's a big thing that I feel like a lot of us, we gotta put that pride aside sometimes and not be afraid to ask for help, because you have peers, you have homies, you have so many resources around you. If you look around, you have a friend who's a photographer, you have a friend who's a graphic designer, you have homies that are models. Like, you have your team around you, and don't be afraid to invest in yourself. And investing in yourself takes time. And be patient. Be patient with yourself. Trial and error is going to be your bread and butter. You want the trial, you want the error, you want everything in between, because it's going to help build you up to, the creative, like masterpiece that you are. So you just really stay true to yourself 100% and be patient with the process.
Love that. So, something I think we have all witnessed, I think yesterday being, one of those moments, but, we've witnessed the uproar from the Black community just kind of over the unjust and mindless murders of innocent Black men and women at the hands of police officers. It's just the truth, especially in 2020. In that time, we've seen some streetwear designers such as Kirby Jean Ramon and Pyre Moss be very vocal about their support of the Black Lives Matter movement. And I know that Cross Colors, we do the same thing as well. And then there are those who've chosen to remain silent. I won't say any names. So, with that in mind, how important is it for designers, specifically those who produce streetwear and are marketing to the Black community or using the Black community for inspiration, how important is it for those designers and brands to speak out against the injustices that impact the Black community?
I think it's very important. That should be a priority for all streetwear brands, because like I said, at the end of the day, like, where does it come from? How did we get to the point of having streetwear? It all goes back to community for me. So if you have a streetwear brand, if you have a platform, use your voice. There's multiple ways we could be speaking out. There's many ways that we can be expressing ourselves, whether it be from the actual message on the clothing to, the mission behind your brand. I feel like at this point, if we aren't using our voices, if we aren't using our platforms, and if we are targeting, our product or our lines or our brands back to the community, back to Black people, it's so important. That's all I gotta say. It's important. Respect history and respect our history.
Yeah, I agree. I agree that we definitely need to, if an individual or company or organization has a platform where they could be a voice, especially in times like these. I think that's what people are looking for. They want to hear, from those that actually have a platform and that they've been speaking to before or during those times as well. But I think it's also, you know, something for us to kind of pull back too, because we need to really realize that this is just a repeat of past history. This is not something that's new today. It's new to those that haven't been familiar with it, but for those that have been around for a while, this is just a reoccurring uh, event, basically, and a reoccurring circumstances and things like that that actually have happened, you know, time and time again. I think what we need to do is, just as a culture, as a people, as a collective, we need to realize that we need to be just that, a culture, a community, and a collective, because we need to come together and we need to figure it out too as well. We definitely need support from others outside of us, but we need to figure it out ourselves. You know, if we figure out how we need to vote, if we figure out how the system works, and I think we need to go back to the fact that it is the system that we're looking at. And when you say system, it's those that control the system, it's those that are in the system, and those that made the system. But we need to be those people. We need to be them. We need to figure out, and we need to realize that we need to be we need to make the system, you know, for us, because it's not for us now, you know, so we need to do that. We need to fix it as much as we can, you know.
Thank you for that. So, Joy, you touched on something a bit earlier that I thought was it's really important, especially for those who are interested in fashion. You said that you started in retail. So I too worked in retail. Good times. Are there any immediate, you know, skills? Closing and people not knowing when to leave the store, even when the gate's down. Sorry, flashbacks. Anyway, are there any skills that you picked up while you were working in retail that you think, you know, immediately kind of helped you cross over to being the creative director and the designer and the model that you are? Did you pick up anything from retail that you think you were able to apply to your career right now?
I mean, my people skills, shout out to that, because I feel like I'm able to communicate and connect with people and all people on different levels. And I think people skills are very important. You will take that everywhere you go. You will need that everywhere you go for the rest of your life, especially if you want to continue to grow and move up and bring others with you and, you know, build an empire. You're going to need to have a voice. You're going to need to be able to speak to people, also as well be able to, you know, pitch things, convince brands. I mean, they should be working with you anyways, because like I said, we got the magic over here. But yeah, just my people skills, everything else. I mean, I try to put that so far back in my mind, but it's also important to revisit, because if I didn't do that, I wouldn't be here now. Yeah, that's a good question. I need to simmer on that myself, because that's not really something I thought about, because like I said, that I try to remind myself, you know, that was a time and a place, but we're here now, because I'm very blessed to be where I am today. But yes, people skills.
So TJ, got you. So TJ, I want to jump to you. So, you know, when you came out here, you know, I know you said that your partner, Carl, was really what kind of pushed you into the fashion industry. Well, you know, when it came down to you and Carl sitting down and kind of figuring out what Cross Colors was going to be, who you're going to market to, what did that process look like? And, you know, quite simply, were either of you afraid of it not working, of it not being a success, especially at the time when, you know, people weren't really marketing to the Black community? Like what did that process look like for you guys, building a brand from scratch?
You know, Carl and I had worked for some years together already with building, you know, brand, because he had a brand prior to that, which was actually a California lifestyle brand. And he and I worked on that very closely. So we developed that from the ground up as well. So the process to us was not new as far as how you start. You know, you start with an idea, I start sketching, and we would start with fabric and those kind of things, and colors and all those, you know, the typical things that you do when you're designing a collection. But for this, it was different. It was different in the sense that You know, we were designing not for a market that we had designed for in the past, which was us. And doing the design for this market, we decided that we were going to do it using Black models. We're going to do it and say that, you know, we did it. You know, all these things were new, and these were scary at the time, because it was scary for the fact because the buyers were not us. The buyers were not us. The retailers at that time primarily were not of color. So this was definitely something we had to make sure it was going to be right, you know, and work. So yeah, we were scared. We were scared the whole time for the most part. But one of the individuals that were working really close to us was David Stinnett, who was our marketing director at the time. He's from Jamaica, and he has some strong opinions about a lot of things. And he also he's a marketer. That was his skill, and still is. And so he always pushed us to make sure that we stayed on track. You know, he was a great visionary too, as well as along with us, and kind of pushed us through. And I think that just goes back to team and motivation too, and support, because he was definitely that for us too. And he would get the data. He did that. He went to the library at that time, no internet, and found out how much we buy, you know, and that was the thing. It was numbers at the end of the day that really pushed us through too as well.
It's the fact that you guys did not have internet still blows my mind, but it's okay. They're fine. I want to pivot really quickly because I'm seeing two really dope questions in the chat. So Lamar Bryan asks, you know, how can we strengthen the Black business culture and strategy? It is important to support Black businesses, but our Black businesses lack customer service. Oh, there's a little bit more. Hold on. Lack customer service. How can we help our Black brothers and sisters in business?
You know, I've been doing this for a while, and also I teach as well. So in teaching, I realize also that, you know, we teach the students to design, we teach them how to get those skill sets in terms of how to design product. But a lot of times when you focus on pretty much the design, the part of the business, you don't focus on the business. So with that, myself, Kevin Hall, Angela Dean, and Ruth E. Carter, we started a nonprofit organization called Black Design Collective. Now, this organization was set out just for that. We actually mentor, we actually do workshops that actually talk about business strategies, marketing, all those things too, and how to navigate through the industry. So we took it upon ourselves to do something to actually support that. So that's what we're doing, you know, to actually do that, to answer that question. And I think we all need to do that. You have the knowledge, you need to share it, you know, and that's what we need to do.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Joy, how about you? Because I have some experiences. Go ahead.
Yeah. As a young entrepreneur, I'm 27, but I have been working for myself. I'm going on 3 years now, being full-time self-employed. And I feel like I did it the opposite way. Like I did not start getting serious about my business until like 3 years ago. I just wanted to be the artist. I wanted to be, you know, the creative, and that's cute. That's, you know, that's important. That's very important, because that's what is, you know, that's the meat and the potatoes. But the business aspect of what you're doing is so valuable. Is so investing in yourself in that way is going to take you so far. That's why I say, like, it. Since I do so many things, my thing from jump was I started off modeling and styling, but I'm like, I've always been an artist. I love doing art. So I started investing in myself and learning graphic design and teaching myself Photoshop. And that was just something that was fun and on the side. But since I've been taking it more seriously in the last couple of years, I've been investing in myself to learn the skill set. And I started keeping track of how much I was making on an Excel spreadsheet over the past 2 years. And that was just like a side hustle, side money, just for fun. And then I saw the numbers after 2 years and I was like, wow, if I really put my focus into this, if I really you know, applied like just the amount of time and effort like into this, this could really do something. This could be really big. So don't limit yourself don't put a label on yourself, and don't limit yourself as to what you do and what you're capable of. I'm the type of person, why hire me for one thing, you can hire me for multiple. So yes, the business aspect of your brand and whatever it is that you're doing, that's going to take you so far. There's so many resources out there as well, and even look to your peers, and it's so valuable, and that will take you from, it'll level you up in so many ways, as well as having a website and business cards. I'm old school in that way, and my like big calendar that's on my desk. Like that really has changed my life. And having those things, like so many people are like, business cards, we have social media, we have all that stuff, but I can't tell you how many times being able to hand a business card to somebody, like their eyes light up, you know? And like, it's like, that's a physical card that you now, like when you're going through your purse, when you're going through your wallet or your pockets, like you are going to be reminded that I handed you this business card. And, you know, having a website as well, like social media, I think is great. That's a tool, that's a resource. Like if we're shifting into, you know, business, you use that as a business tool and a business resource. Like a website, I think, is really important, or just having your portfolio or whatever work that is you do, like in a space that's outside of social media. And then you can see the data and just the numbers that are coming off of that. I'm still learning lots of things. A lot of this I've just figured out on my own, and I'm very thankful now to have representation to kind of guide me. But yes, like if you want to do this and you want to do this seriously, business, you definitely have to be just as much of a boss as you are as an artist.
I
love
also
that.
add to that too as well, because with the with saying the business, it's just very, very important to you actually, you know, your bottom line, just knowing the business and knowing what you're making and how much it costs you to make that, whatever that is as well. That's very important. But when you think about the business, a lot of times it get overwhelming for people, especially as creatives. So those things that you know, and you need to be honest with yourself. And this is when you need to really be honest with yourself. When you know that you're not good at something, you need to find others that you trust to do those things with you and for you, so that you can actually level up. Because do not prevent yourself from going to the next level because you refuse to actually do those things right, or get those skill sets that you need to go to the next level. You have to be honest with yourself and actually make sure that you surround yourself with the right people to actually do what you need to do. And I also suggest too, and this is what I tell my students, when you start in a company, it's great to have a design company with 20 designers, but if everyone's designing, who's doing the business? Who's making sure that the customers are handled? Who's making sure that the marketing and promotion is done? You need to surround yourself as your team with the right people to do the right things for you. And I think a big part of that is identifying what you need to go. You know, what do you need to go to the next level? So make sure you do that when you're actually putting the package together. And remember, you are the brand at all times.
That response is excellent. So again, I think that there's so many amazing questions coming from the chat right now. So Drew Hudson asks, or says rather, rappers are oftentimes free walking ads and billboards for white designers who not only steal our fashion, but claim it as their own. So have any of you tried to connect with rappers to support Black-owned fashion and businesses in general? How can we get our influential stars to support us at a time where Gucci and Birkin are the thing?
As a stylist, I always do my best to make sure that the brands that I am pulling from, the designers that I'm pulling from, are Black or brown owned. That is so important to me because there's so many fly and dope brands and designers that are out right now. And they, you know, we gotta do some work and just like seeing what's out there instead of just going to the big brands. I'm not much of a big brand person to begin with, so it's really important for me to elevate existing brands, especially Black brands that have just as much swag and have just as much quality. Okay.
Facts. Facts. TJ, how about you?
Well, I just think we need to, again, I just think it goes back to the same thing. We just need to be aware ourselves of who we're wearing. You know, we can't ask for the entertainers to, you know, step out there and rep different products or rep Black designers if we're not doing it ourselves. I think we need to do it ourselves. And then those designers too, they need to be educated. I mean, the entertainers and the athletes, they too need to know that there are resources out there that are of quality and those kind of things too. I mean, one of the things we're doing too internally for the organization that I'm with is we're actually making a Black design directory. We're doing that to actually make sure we can put that out, and so people, they won't have an excuse, you know, to buy Black or to support Black or know who the Black designers are. You know, so they can actually check out their wares, they can check out their website and those kind of things too through this resource. But I think too, you know, we need to do more research ourselves. We need to get out there and find those Black designers, you know, and encourage those that support us to support Black designers. We have to start that way and do it ourselves as well. You know? Because I see a lot of people that actually, even during these times when you can't even go out really and navigate the same way, they're still purchasing that product, you know, that high-end product that they feel is a status symbol. And those brands have done an amazing job of the brainwashing and persuasive advertisement to make you feel that those are the things you have to have status, you know. And we, as a culture, we need to really make people realize that we are that status. And we have those brands too, that are even better a lot of times than a lot of those brands out there.
So something I want to touch on, because I think with that question that Drew asked, and Drew, thank you for that question. You know, it opens up something else. So, you know, we are now in an influencer culture, right? Where a brand technically isn't a brand. It doesn't matter unless somebody famous is seen wearing the clothing. So, TJ, I want to pose this question to you first. So, you know, Cross Colors dropped at a time where influencer marketing, it didn't exist. It wasn't a thing. And, you know, there's some who, you know, still attribute Cross Colors to starting that wave of, you know, getting celebrities to wear your, specifically in streetwear, getting celebrities to wear your clothing. So can you talk a bit about how you, like, Cross Colors got started with influencer marketing, maybe who, you know, who kind of kick-started that momentum for you? Because I know that there was a certain point in the 90s where just everywhere you turned, Cross Colors. It was in movies, music, it was everywhere. Can you talk about how that started?
Well, actually, it started with extra samples that we had with Cross Colors at the time. Our marketing director, David, and Carl and myself, we were, you know, trying to figure out what to do with those samples, because we didn't have a huge budget for marketing or product placement, and even at that time, it wasn't even called product placement. It was just called getting someone to wear your stuff, basically. So what we did is we suggested to David to go to the studios and go to the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Actually, that was where he went to actually take the samples out there, which were called kill samples at the time because they were extra samples that we didn't need or would drop from the collection when we did. And what happened is that they loved the pieces. The stylist loved them and he loved them. More importantly, he loved them. And he loved them because the aesthetics of the product, the colors of the product at the time too. And before we knew it, in a couple of days, those pieces were on television, just like that. We were blown away. And so that really gave us the formula by happenstance, how to actually approach the studios and how to get people to wear the product. And that's what we kept doing from then on. And what it did was gravitate and migrated into the music industry from there as well. We found that music artists wanted to wear the product too. And so we actually hired someone to actually be on within the company that had a connection to the music industry, and they would bring new acts to us. And that's how we got the Snoop Dogs and the Dre's and all those individuals to be part of the platform too. But something very important about the entire process is that I think everybody needs to understand that these people we did not pay. We gave them clothes in return for them to wear the product for the most part. And we didn't force them to wear the product. They wore it because they wanted to support the brand, because of the messaging behind the brand. And I think that's very important for you to understand when you're developing a product, when you're developing a brand, you really need to have more to the brand than just the idea of trying to sell something. You have to have it has to be more of like a community you're developing, and there's a foundation to the product and something more than just the concept of selling. And that's what it really helps people to support your brand organically as well.
Dre, what are your thoughts?
I agree with that 100%, especially being on the opposite side of being the model and working with tons of brands and being an influencer. To me, the brands that I work with, they have to hold the same mission and values and be in alignment with who I am as an artist, because at the end of the day, this is my brand. So it's just as important. I feel like, working with people that we hold the same values and the same morals, because this is going to be attached to me and my brand for the rest of my life and vice versa. And so, yeah, I really, sorry, I kind of lost the question because I got so caught up in what Jay was saying because I was just absorbing.
So really, the question for you is like, what's your perspective right now on this influencer culture and the idea that brands aren't significant or can't sell clothing until somebody relevant to the culture wears it?
I mean, I believe in the organic process. I believe in the organic process, just touching off of what TJ said, because that is how you are going to keep an authentic and genuine audience. For me, I feel like the best thing I can tie that to is when people ask me like how I got a following or, Instagram and all that stuff. And it's like, I didn't buy anything, it was all just like over time, over the last 7, to 10 years that I've just been myself and just doing what I do. And then people see that and people resonate with that and people, identify with that and respect that. So I feel like it goes the same way with your brand, and like, you don't need that person to take you from 0 to 100. You can take yourself from 0 to 100. But it also, like I said, the resources that you have around you are so valuable and so important, regardless of if they're a person of high status or not. So there's value in the people around you. There's value in your peers. There's value in, collaborating with other like-minded creatives and just kind of building on top of that and building something that's going to be big and powerful. And if somebody bites that and wants to run with it, and that's amazing, but at the same time, it's not necessary. It's not necessary because we are about quality and longevity and generational wealth.
Come on now.
Like we don't want something that's short and temporary. Good things take time. Amazing things take time.
So I love that. So y'all are asking all the questions right now, and I'm kind of living for this. So Nate J. Whitaker, homie from Morehouse, he says, I'm an aspiring screenwriter, playwright, producer, and director. Sorry, mouthful. However, I've been thinking about costume design as well. How and where do I start?
You have the people around you. You have the people around you already. If you're already working in film, you're already working in, video production, the next time you're on set or the next time you have a gig, talk to the stylist, talk to the costume designer. It's, like I said, we have everything we need. Literally, you have everything you need. We just have to look a little deeper and look around. Costume design is really cool though. As a stylist, it's something that I've like wanted to dabble in. I feel like maybe start educating yourself or start doing research on just like costume designers that are out, and go off of there.
I would also say, I would also just recommend interning with designers or interning with clothing brands.
Mm-hmm.
So, all of that to say, Cross Colors, we have a mentorship program that is geared towards students who have a passion in entertainment and sports as well, because we touch all areas of that, but sports, entertainment, and fashion being kind of one of the biggest elements of that mentorship program. So if you or anyone you know is really interested in getting into fashion and networking, learning things, I would just say submit your resumes. So if anyone, just submit your resumes just in general. If you guys haven't submitted your resumes for the virtual resume book, please do so. Just send it to the HBCU educated @gmail.com. I'll put the info here, but Nate, if I have your info, I can just reach out to you and we can, figure out how to make that work. But yeah, literally, it's just like Jeray said, reaching out to people who work in that industry and asking questions, especially as a college student. You guys don't realize the power you wield. Typically, no one's going to tell you no. Like, no one will ever really feel right telling a college student no when they're asking to learn things. So that's definitely something that I encourage you to do. Ask these questions and be bold enough to jump into people's DMs or their emails if you can find that info online, and just ask them questions. Tell them that you want to shadow or you want to learn from them. But TJ, I'll let you go ahead and take it as well.
For costume design, one thing that you really need to know when you're a costume designer is budget. That's something that you really, I think you don't hear about until you actually do a program or something like that, or when you're actually on the front line and you're working in there trying to figure it all out, because it's based on budget that you have to actually do whatever production you're going to be doing. So you really need to understand numbers. And if you don't, you need to have somebody around you that understand numbers. You should research the history of costume design so you understand the periods related to specific things, when they started, what made them popular, and then what's current now and why, as far as style is concerned too, as well. You have to understand the design process too. How do you design something? What do you start with? If you have sketching skills, that's great. But one thing you mentioned, I think the individual, is that I think you work with film or you do something with film. If you are related or doing anything within the film in terms of having that skill set, you should start today just making clips of what you see and what you're doing on a daily. Even from the things to actually to start branding yourself and creating yourself as that individual that does that or want to do that. All that content, because things now sell based on content. I mean, having a brand, having your own company, whatever that is, content is key today. Because right now everyone's at home for the most part, or actually staring at something in their mobile device, and it has to be able to translate to a phone, whatever that is. So you can communicate that way or actually have those visuals accessible. But if you can create visuals, you should start doing that today.
Absolutely. So we have another question this one's from Addison Adams. How do we as the Black community try to educate other races about the history of streetwear and stress the importance of supporting Black streetwear clothing businesses and to appreciate our culture rather than appropriate it? Yes. Yes.
Jeray.
Can you start?
It was a mouthful. Yeah. It was a mouthful. Yeah.
So let's do that.
TJ was talking about, we also have to be setting the example. So I 100% agree with that. And, practicing what we preach. And I think it's amazing that there's you guys are starting a directory. So it's not going to be hard to find, you know, as far as just like the brands out there. But I think the question was going back to how can we educate or just inform others. It all goes back to, you know, let's understand and let's take time to understand and respect where these pieces come from. There's so many amazing documentaries out there. There's so many amazing resources and people that we could talk to, where we could, you know, take time to fully dissect and understand why certain things were made in this way. And I also feel like as the consumer is shopping for these pieces, you know, they should be doing the homework art themselves. Like at the end of the day, Black people, we out here giving free lessons on everything. So taking time, the resources are there, you know, there's so many varieties of brands out there that are further than what we see that, you know, the mainstream stuff. There's so much. So we just take time to educate ourselves, take time to dig a little deeper and to see the plethora of designers that we could be buying from instead of, you know, the big rigs.
So, Peter, do you want to respond? Sure.
I think that, you know,
I had a follow-up question for you, so that's what I was asking.
Okay, this will be quick. I'm just going to just say this: Google. Okay, so Google, just do your research, and I think you type in what you're looking for, and see what comes up. All right, we need to stop just relying on others to do it for us, and that's what I keep saying. You have to educate yourself, and don't believe everything you see as well. Just because it's on Google doesn't mean it's right. But you have to just start educating yourself. Okay, getting information. Just put in who are the Black designers, you know, currently, past, and whatever. And don't just stop at the 20th century. Don't just stop there. Go further back. You know, you need to go back in times of Egypt and all that when that was popping, and it still is, but popping in terms of what was worn, what is there, the colors, all those things too, and see why you like what you like. You know. Do that, you know, research outside of the US too, because US is relatively young, you know, as far as how long it's been here in terms of the quote unquote discovery, you know, so do that research.
So ultimately, Addison, you know, to really kind of hit that question, it's not really up to another person to inform somebody who is guilty of appropriating of what the clothing they're wearing means. It is up to individuals to stop relying on others to spoon feed them history when they're well aware of the fact that the brands and clothing they're wearing have been around and have been worn by, you know, a completely different culture that is not their own. It is not really up to you to carry the burden of educating someone when they're more than capable of hopping onto Google the same way they found the website to buy that clothing, or they went to the vintage shop. Typically, when you go buy anything from a vintage store, the people who work in those stores are like hype about everything that are on their rack. So you will sometimes, I've had some of my best conversations with people at vintage stores just buying pieces. There's so much history around you. It's not really up to your friend to say, oh, do you know who you're wearing? Like, you should know before you put the clothing on. And you do make a good point. And a few of you said this in the chat that, you know, appropriation is heavy right now. We see it all over pop culture right now. There are a ton of people who are, you know, very prominent who are who they are because they've profited off of Black culture, Black style, just us. So, you know, they don't lack intelligence. I'm trying to find the right word. They know what they're doing. So in most cases, they don't need an education lesson because they knew from jump. But, you know, for some cultures and races over others, their perspective is who's going to check me. You're welcome for me wearing this. That's their perspective. So it's not really on you to educate.
Yeah.
Ooh, this can turn into a deeper convo.
One more thing too is that with the process, okay, what we need to understand is that we can control the narrative. You can control it in the sense that you don't have to buy that. If you don't buy it, it won't be successful. The businesses work because people buy the product. If we decide we're not going to buy, then if they appropriate, if they do whatever, it doesn't matter, because it'll only be on the high profile individual. It'll only be on them. And you or we won't buy it, so they cannot sell it. It won't go any further than that. That's it. We need to learn that we need to buy based on what we want, what we've done, and what we believe in. You know, start to buy that way. And like Jure says, educate yourself about what you're buying, you know, and only do that.
Absolutely. So we have a question from Kennedy McNeil. As a stylist, where do you start as far as finding new and unique pieces for clients?
Well, I look to my community first and foremost, and my peers, because I know so many amazing designers. I know so many amazing creatives. So I love being able to pull from, you know, the people that are closest to me. That's really important. And people that, you know, it all goes back to the community. So that is where the inspiration comes from. That is where everything goes back to. But as a stylist, I'm big on, you know, let's reduce, reuse, recycle if we can. So I really look to vintage clothing. That's my sweet spot. That is where my heart is. So what was the question again? I'm sorry. I feel like I'm going into a different question.
No, it's all good. So Kennedy, as a stylist, where do you start as far as finding new and unique pieces for clients?
So vintage. I love one-of-a-kind pieces, and the clients that I get to work with, you know, I want to be able to put them in stuff that, you know, you've never seen before, or you haven't seen in a minute, or is very unique and very special, and different. But also, like I said, because I am a stylist, I always like to make sure that I am working with Black designers and Black brands. As much as I can. So, you know, that's where Instagram comes in handy and has made the world become so much smaller than it is, because we can just sit there and swipe and, you know, look at things all day. And I like to be able to just like send messages to myself of designers that, you know, Black designers that are up and coming, just so I can remember, you know, keep a directory in my head. For the future, when I do get a gig, I'm like, oh, this person, I remember this person, or that designer. But it is dependent, I feel like, on the job itself, you know, in particular, because some gigs call for things that are more fun and funky and bold and out there. And then there's other jobs that are a bit more, you know, we're keeping it a bit more conservative and commercial. So it's dependent upon that, but also working on jobs and starting from the bottom to the top. I didn't normally have the budget that I wanted to, or the budget that was needed to fulfill the client's needs. Or, you know, I started off styling. I won a scholarship to a program called School of Style years ago, and that taught me the ins and outs of the fashion industry as a stylist. And I learned very quickly that I did not want to do celebrity styling. I didn't want to do big red carpet stuff. I didn't really want to work with these big brands and all of that stuff, because that just wasn't me. I wanted to work with real people. I wanted to work with, you know, young people, old people, everyone. I feel like it was so limited on that end of just like big styling gigs and celebrity styling. So I never had the money or the credit card to go and buy things and return things. I had to figure it out for myself. So figuring out was like building a wardrobe, collecting a wardrobe and a collection over time. I have vintage clothes and I love thrifting. Thrifting is something I've been interested in since I was in high school. So I have pieces in my collection that I've had since high school, and like building my collection as a stylist over time. So sometimes I don't even necessarily have to pull from people. I have amazing pieces that I've had for years that I just, you know, continue to add, and then bring onto set, and then mix that in with like contemporary designers, or mix that in with a vintage piece. You know, you got to get creative, I feel like. And, you know, if you don't have access to those other resources, you have access to something, you know? So it's really like, it's getting creative with what you have and making it work with what you have.
Amazing. So we're at the end of our time, but I want to get one more question on because it feels so important, especially for college students. So is it tough to get into the fashion industry with no degree? Would personal experience be as valuable? And that is from Lamar Bryan.
I'm going to answer this really quickly because I don't have a degree. Okay. I didn't get a degree in fashion, and I am where I am without one, you know, but you can also get here with one. So I feel like in fashion specifically, it's all about experience. It is all about experience and just who you know and making connections and networking. Like that is where it is. Can't be afraid to talk to people, can't be afraid to reach out and put yourself out there, because it's, you know, they don't teach you in school about all the nitty-gritty things in between. They don't teach you about the trial and error. So it's possible. It's definitely possible. You really have to be, you know, you have to put yourself out there. You have to, 100%.
I love that. TJ, final thought?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that too as well, that you don't have to have the, you know, the schooling or the education behind it to be in. I don't think I mean, that's been shown in a lot of professions that you don't really need to have that degree to actually make huge accomplishments. But you do have to have the staying power, you do have to have the passion, and you do have to be able to talk and to network as well, you know, because those are the things that are going to keep you going. Because a lot of people out in different industries, they don't have, you know, a diploma from different levels of education, but they do have a Rolodex, what we used to call it, you know, or numbers in their phone that they can reach out to get things done. So it's just important to make sure you navigate properly too in doing that. And you navigate professionally too as well. And that goes from and something I did mention, that goes from your social media to your website and all those things too. The content that you have there needs to reflect professional aesthetics, you know, just to keep everything clean and actually remember you are the brand. Everything you do is the brand. And that's what people buy into.
TJ, Jeray, thank you both so much for giving your time in these amazing gems. You got so much great engagement just throughout this entire panel. So thank you guys both. If you guys can also drop your social media handles, just so that the audience has it, that would be great. DJ Ben, it's all you. Take us into our next break. We're going to be starting with Women in Sports. That starts at 12:15. So we will see you in a little bit. Enjoy the music, catch a vibe, get a snack. And like Wendy says, come on back. All right, DJ, it's all you.